Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. Today we're going to follow the money and how wealth shapes power and policy in American politics. In today's episode of the Unfiltered Political Lens, I'm taking a deeper, more comprehensive look at one of the most powerful forces in modern politics: money. Not just who donates or how much is spent, but how money moves through the system, how it translates into access, how it shapes policy, and ultimately how it influences the way government functions. This isn't about speculation or assumptions. This is about structure, data, and understanding the mechanics behind the scenes, because once you understand how the money flows, you start to understand how power flows. When I step back and really examine the money and influence in American politics, what I see isn't a single source of control. It's a complex, layered system where funding, access, relationship, and policy are all interconnected. The scale alone is enough to reshape how we think about politics, and in recent federal election cycles, total political spending has surpassed $14 billion, making it the most expensive in U.S. history. That number reflects more than just campaign ads. It reflects costs of competing in a system where the attention, messaging, and visibility are essential to survival. A major turning point in how money entered the system came with the Citizens United versus the Election Commission ruling that decisions fundamentally changed the landscape by allowing corporations and unions to spend unlimited amounts on independent political messaging, while direct contributions to candidates are still capped. This ruling created a parallel system, one where outside groups, particularly super PACs, gain and raise and spend unlimited funds as long as they do not officially coordinate with the campaign. In reality, this was led to billions of dollars flowing into the elections through channels that operate alongside campaigns, often amplifying specific narratives, candidates, or policy agendas. As I dig deeper into a contribution data, a clear pattern emerges. A relatively small percentage of donors accounts for a large share of the total political funding. High net worth individuals, major corporations, and organized interest groups dominate large scale political contributions, and small dollar donations have increased, especially with online fundraising platforms. But large donors still play a significant role in shaping the financial landscape. And with those contributions often comes access to private fundraisers, direct communications with the candidates, and opportunities to influence how issues are discussed and prioritized. That connection between money and access doesn't necessarily mean direct control, but it does create an influence. If certain individuals or groups consistently have access to decision makers, their perspectives are more likely to be heard over time. That repeated access can shape agendas and influence the priorities and impact how policies are framed long before they reach a vote. Lobbying is where this influence becomes more structured and measurable. In the United States, lobbying expenditures have exceeded $4 billion annually, with industries such as healthcare, finance, energy, and technology leading the way. Lobbyists play a significant role in the policymaking process. They provide research, they draft legislative proposals, and maintain ongoing relationships with lawmakers and their staff. In many cases, they are involved in the early stages of policy development before a bill is introduced or debated publicly. This means the influence on them applied not just at the point of decisions, but at the point of creation. And another critical layer is a revolving door between the government and the private sector. It is common for former lawmakers and regulators and staff members to transition into lobbying or consulting roles after leaving public office. They bring with them the institutional knowledge and the understanding of how the decisions are made, who holds the influence, and how to navigate the systems effectively. While this expertise can be valuable, it also raises questions about the long term incentives. If individuals know there are opportunities waiting after their time in government, it can also shape how the relationships are built and maintained while they are still in office. Campaign finance laws attempt to regulate the system. There are limits on direct contributions, requirements for disclosure, and oversight mechanisms that are designed to track the spending. However, there are also caps or gaps. Some political spending flows through nonprofit organizations that are not required to fully disclose their donors. This is often referred to as dark money. While it represents a smaller portion of the total political spending compared to overall campaign funding, its lack of transparency makes it a significant factor when discussing public trust and accountability. I have also had to consider how technology has transformed political spending. Campaigns now rely heavily on the digital advertising, data analytics, and targeted messaging. This allows campaigns to reach specific audiences with precision, making spending more efficient, but also more complex. Instead of broad messaging campaigns, you can now tailor their communications to different groups, increasing the engagement, but also raising the questions about consistency and transparency in messaging. Beyond campaigns and lobbying, money also plays a role in shaping long-term political influence through think tanks, advocacy groups, and policy organizations. These entities conduct research, publish reports, and influence the public's discourse. While they independent sources of information, they are frequently funded by the donors with a specific interest. This also adds another layer to how ideas are introduced, debated, and ultimately integrated into the policy. At the same time, I recognize that the money is not the only factor in politics. Public opinion, voter turnout, and grassroots movements still play a powerful role. There are cases where heavily funded campaigns have failed and where candidates with fewer resources have gained momentum through strong messaging and public support. This shows that while money is influential, it is not absolute. What stands out to me most is how our influence operates over time. It's not always immediate or visible. It builds gradually through relationships, access, and sustained presence. Money helps create and maintain that presence, and it ensures that certain voices remain part of the conversation, that certain issues stay on the agenda, and that certain perspectives are consistently considered. And that brings me to the larger issue: trust. When people look at the political system, they're not just evaluating outcomes, they're evaluating fairness. They're asking whether access is equal, whether influence is balanced, and whether decisions reflect the broader public interest. When money plays such a significant role, those questions become more pronounced. At its core, understanding money in politics is about understanding structure. It's about recognizing how funding, access, and the influence interact to shape the system. Because once I understand how that system works, I can start to ask more informed questions about how it should evolve and what changes might be needed to ensure that it reflects the principles it was meant to uphold. Thank you for tuning in, and please make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe. And once again, for tuning in to the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. As always, peace.